here, and we'll give him a proper hello, and then we'll get the show started. I see that our crew is in the chat room. I see famous Anna, and I see infamous Lynn. I didn't know she was infamous, but I guess she is. All right, let's welcome Scott. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Scott Ferrarello. Hey, Scott.
Hey, Joanne, how you doing today?
I'm doing great now that you straightened me out today. I'm doing all right. That was a little inside joke. I was having a little bit of a snit today, and I wasn't feeling very effective. And Scott said, hey, not everybody has a radio show, so that kind of straightened me right out right there. He's right. So, how are you today, my friend? How was your weekend?
Oh, not too bad. I see that thing you posted earlier. I was just down near Colorado Springs about a month ago.
Oh, yeah?
Yep.
What Scott's referring to is there's breaking news that Lynn hooked me up with just before we came on air. It says that the Colorado State Police have stopped a man who was walking down the highway with an IED. It doesn't describe what kind of an IED, but it's from the 9/11 breaking newsroom. It says the Colorado State Police have confiscated an improvised explosive device, or an IED, from a man seen walking along the highway. It's the number 50 bypass, and that was this afternoon. It says the stretch of Highway 50 from I-25 to Bonfort in Pueblo is now open after being closed as police investigated. They said the device was in his hand, and a trooper immediately took the item from the suspect. I don't know if I would have approached him with it, but it says that the bomb squad was called in to remove the threat and all that. And it says that they referred to the device as a small IED. I don't know, anything could be an IED, but the suspect is being questioned as we speak. So what do you think about that, Scott?
Well, there's no way he knew what the guy was holding. You know, it could have been anything. It could have been a bottle of whiskey for all he knew, till he got it and, took it back to wherever and somebody saw it. I mean,
yeah, or it could have been, one of those soda bottles. You know how they mix the little chemicals in it and make those blow up if you can hear it?
You mean Molotov cocktail?
No. It's something with Mountain Dew, actually. And they put a little bit of the soda in a bottle with some other ingredient. I don't know what the other ingredient is. But if you touch it, they explode. As long as it stays still, it doesn't blow up. I've seen it happen quite a few times down here in Florida. They found one by a dumpster, and when they went to move it, it blew up on them. And it's not a big IED, but it's, something stupid that I would think that there would be the kids, teenagers, jerking around with. It's not, it's more explosive than a firecracker, but not anything that's going to blow up a building or something. It's just going to, like blow apart a bag or maybe a rubbish can or something. You know what? Do you remember the two VA officials who were accused of defrauding the agency, and one of them had charged the VA actually $250,000 so she could move 40 miles?
Oh,
and then when they got
that'd be great. Get paid $150,000 just to move. You're going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And she actually gave herself the job, by the way. But
wow.
Yeah, well, they're not going to be charged. It says the VA, they're not even going to fire them. The VA won't fire officials who defrauded the agency. Yeah, absolutely.
They were probably doing, they were probably just doing what their commander-in-chief was telling them to do.
Mm-hmm.
So they just got caught. No problem unless you get caught. Just like all the voter fraud. Even during all that voter fraud, 8 million votes disappear, and he gets reselected in 2012. He comes out and jokes about how, Chicago, that's voter fraud us in.
Yeah, I know, they were joking about it. Well, the Inspector General said that Rubens created a position for herself in Philadelphia and then accepted it, netting $274,000 in the process. Her new job entailed far fewer responsibilities, but she retained the same six-figure salary, too. But they're not going to be charged. They're not going to get fired. Nothing's going to happen to them. It says that they were both demoted and reassigned to other VA offices as a result of their misconduct, and they will receive a pay cut. Well,
yeah, $12.
Just that. Yeah, what are they going to do? Drop them down 50 cents an hour or something?
The level of corruption is so bad. And that Pat Cadell did a speech the other night, and he was talking about it that both sides, both the left and the right, realize that the corruption is so bad that there's two sets of laws for everyone. And when 80% of the public think that they're not getting a fair shake, and certain people are above the law and they aren't, there's some major revolution problems happening, because that's when government collapse.
You're right. That will just foment complete discontent. I'm so discontented. I was ready to just hang it up today. It's good that I talked to you, Scott, because I was like, well, what difference is it making? We're not getting anywhere. We can't get anybody to even agree. Two people in the same room, two Americans in the same room can't agree on anything. And, we're in stupid fights over Trump and Rubio and Cruz and all of that. Meanwhile, the Democrats, although that Bernie Sanders is still running around, you think any one of them is going to allow Bernie Sanders to take that nomination away from Hillary?
No, and that's another thing. That's another thing that will breed even more distrust and loathing of the government, is that all the millennials, pretty much because they're millennials and they haven't, reached the age of 30 and gotten any wisdom yet, they're all behind Bernie. They don't want Hillary. Nobody wants Hillary, but the establishment wants Hillary. So this is why they stick three stooges up on their debate stage, is because, communists, they don't want they don't want you to have any choices. This is why this globalist TPP is going to be, you're going to have one place to go to get nails. You're going to have one place to buy videos. It's all centralized power. So they stick three stooges up there, one who's a virtual unknown, O'Malley, and then they put, Hillary, their golden girl, and then they put Bernie, who everybody wants.
Yeah,
but,
and
they tell him, you can't attack her. She's a woman.
I'm so sick of that Hillary being a woman thing that it's just
it's her
driving
only
me
accomplishment.
Crazy.
Her only accomplishment was being
Trump
born
was
a woman.
Trump said her biggest accomplishment was staying out of jail. But he's right too. You can't argue with that. But
and,
her being a woman, come on, and unless she's getting advice from her genitalia, I don't think that being a woman is a qualifier for the job. It doesn't, you can be a man or a woman. It's you use your brain for that job. It's not like, she's selling tampons or something.
I'm starting to have second thoughts about whether or not she's untouchable, because if Obama wanted to, he could have made all that just go away, just like everything else he's made go away. But this, they're keeping it going.
Right.
So you're thinking, well, if they don't want Bernie to take the nomination, and they're railroading Hillary and letting her take some heat for this, who do they want in there? It's either Martin O'Malley, who I thought was going to be the only other option to begin with, a couple of months ago, which I was right on that. But it looks like they're pretty much either they know Obama isn't going anywhere, or they figure, hey, let's just let the Republicans have it for the next 4 to 8 years, and we'll come back again someday or something. I don't know.
Yeah, and not just any Republican either, because they're certainly going after Trump. Boy, are we going to get into that. This is getting really ugly over that. Before we get to that, though, let's talk about a travel warning. Now, Obama says that ISIS is the JV team, and all these refugees are just widows and orphans, and there's really nothing bad about them. Then why do we have a global travel warning? The State Department issued a travel warning for the entire planet. All right? I mean, Derek Hunter over at the Daily Caller says travel alerts are not uncommon for the State Department. They routinely issue warnings for the Americans traveling abroad to various hotspots to guard or consider canceling their plans altogether. However, in light of recent events, the State Department has taken the unusual step of issuing a worldwide travel alert. Current information suggests that ISIL, also called Daesh, or Al-Qaeda, or Boko Haram, or any other terrorist group, they continue to plan terrorist attacks in multiple regions. But I thought they were peaceful. Hillary Clinton herself came out and said that they're peaceful, that this is a peaceful religion. I got to tell you something about peaceful. I found out about it. Is they do consider themselves a peaceful religion. They are striving for peace. However, the only peace that they can have, and when they can have it, is after
everybody else is
they
dead
build,
or converted.
Right. After everybody's dead or converted, when the whole world is the global caliphate, then there will be peace. So they're saying peaceful, but it's more peace, striving for peace. But there'll be no peace until the caliphate is complete, is what my point is.
Yep.
So when they say peaceful, that's code for after the caliphate.
Well, see, I think the reason why they keep saying that they're not at war with this group and Muslims are peaceful is, even though they're the biggest hypocrites in the world, it's like right in your face when they declare war against something, and then they're flying in hundreds of thousands of them a month.
Mhm.
You know.
I saw a picture, and it showed some attackers. They had a couple of guys on the ground, and they were getting ready to behead them. And there was a whole crowd of people all around them in a circle, waiting for the beheading to get done. And it identified the attackers as radical Islam. And it had an arrow pointing to all the people circling around them, watching
it.
as moderate. Yeah, those are the moderates. Nobody stopped the beheading, but because they were not involved in the actual act, they're considered moderate. Just the radicals were doing the actual beheading. But what about those people all standing around in a circle? And the same with when they were launching the gays off the tall building. There were a couple of the Islamists who had the man blindfolded and hung out the window, and there were a whole bunch of people on the ground waiting for him to drop. So they didn't actually kill the man, but they hung around and waited for him to hit the deck. Those were the moderates. Hey, we had a problem. The other night, a plane came in from Mexico. It had 150 people on it. And when they got off the plane, some official led the whole group past customs and out down to the baggage claim. Nobody got checked through customs or anything. So the New York Daily News says that their airheads and airline security officials at Kennedy Airport let 150 passengers arriving from an international flight leave the airport without going through customs. American Airlines Flight 1671 arrived at JFK from Cancun, Mexico at 8:50 p.m. on Friday. When the plane landed, passengers walked out of the airport without having their passports or bags checked by Customs and Border Protection. And it says, a source familiar with the matter said passengers disembarking from the plane just followed a gate agent. So somebody led them past Customs and out the door. It said that they were all called and they came back except for 6 who were Americans. It never says who these people were. The flight did come in from Mexico, but it never said that they were Mexicans on board. So who were they? And then who was this gate official who just took everybody on the plane and walked them past Customs without ever stopping?
He's probably one of the 72 or however many it was terrorists on the DHS terrorist watch list. Now, can you believe that? They got people working at the TSA that are on the terrorist watch list.
Yeah.
And you have to go through a background check to get a job like that. So they knew it.
Yeah, and then one passenger said that there were no signs for customs or anything. The only signs we saw were baggage claim and exit. So they said now the agents have been harassing them with phone calls to go back and check in, and they're very aggressive. That's the Americans, the 6 Americans, but it never tells us were they refugees. You know, it says they came in from Cancun, but it never said that they were Mexicans. So I think they wanted to imply that, but it doesn't say.
Right, of course.
So what are you guys all doing for Thanksgiving? You going to be talking about guns with your family? The White House wants you to talk to your family about guns and gun laws, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, they want you to talk about gun control, so make sure you tell your family they're not going. You're not getting them, period.
Yeah, and then Josh Ernst, he said that Republicans, not Americans, just Republicans, are afraid of the National Rifle Association. The National Rifle Association said that there's 1 million people on the terrorist watch list. Okay, now, Obama says that we don't have any enemies. The Taliban are not the terrorists. The Al-Qaeda, the Boko Harams, none of them. They were on terror lists, but they were taken off so we could release people
that would be
from
everybody with a that'd be everybody with a membership to the NRA.
That's
what
yeah, so if
we
say. And one of them is a 2-year-old boy that's on the terror list. He's 2. I don't know what he did to piss everybody off, and he's not even an orphan or a widow.
Probably born white.
Well, the NRA wants to go over this list and see who's on it and see who should be who shouldn't be on this list. And then, of course, because you say that there's 1 million people on a terror watch list, do we have 1 million terrorists in the country?
According to
even
them,
the 2-year-old?
Yes, because according to DHS's own book and some in the Army manuals, Christians are terrorists now. Pro-gun people are terrorists. Right-wingers are terrorists. 4 years ago, it was people with Ron Paul stickers on their car were terrorists. It's everybody except the real terrorists and communists, basically.
Right. So a 2-year-old boy, when he grows up, he's not going to be able to get a gun because he's on a terror list that he shouldn't be on. And
there's no way to get off of it either, by the way.
Yeah, that's
no
what
way
the
to get off
problem
of
is. That's what the problem is. And now Josh Ernst, who in the same breath was saying, oh, that rotten Trump, he wants to watch some mosques. Now, this guy's got 1 million people, 1 million Americans maybe. We don't know who's on his terror list. Some may be Americans, some may not be, whatever. But, he's got a list with 1 million names on it, and he's going to complain about watching some mosques, like the one in Boston that has bred how many terrorists out of there now? How many terrorists passed through that mosque in Boston? 7, 9, 10? Some of the 9/11 hijackers passed through that mosque.
Count.
The Tsarnaev brothers passed through that mosque.
You mean the refugees? You mean the vetted refugees?
Yeah, vetted refugees. Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
I thought they vetted them.
Well, we're talking about guns. Do you know North Carolina had a gun buyback the other day?
Yeah, I do.
Hillary was all excited about the gun buyback and how big it was and how wonderful it was and how many people showed up. 1,000 people showed up. 1,000 people showed up and took a pledge of nonviolence Saturday at the Christian Center in Greensboro.
No, but
it says it was...
Wasn't it one BB gun and a knife?
Yeah. Yep. But the article says, it was a huge success and 1,000 people showed up, and then their big gun buyback was one BB gun and a knife.
Let the good times roll.
So that's a huge success. Oh, you go, North Carolina. You go, Hillary.
Yeah.
You took a BB gun off the street. Hope no one put their eye out with it.
Yeah, well, Red Ryder,
Yeah, I know, and a knife.
You'll shoot your eye out, kid.
Yep, you'll shoot your eye out with it. But, that's their big successful gun buyback. And we got to be out of our minds. We really do. And then, D.C., who had a handgun ban for a while. And people took them to court because they couldn't even get a concealed carry permit. Nobody was getting a permit. And the judge said, no, you're interfering in their rights. Of course they can have a permit. If they didn't do anything wrong, if they don't have any felonies, you got to give it to them. They're still not getting them. But the top cop, who was one of the biggest gun control advocates in the world, just come out and said people should take out mass shooters. So if you got somebody shooting up the place like over in Paris, it's okay to shoot back. So, and that's the D.C. top cop that said that. That's from the Daily Caller. In a complete about-face from normal police protocol, D.C. Police Chief Kathy Lanier is asking regular people to take out active shooters if they have the chance. She told Anderson Cooper during an interview Sunday on CBS's 60 Minutes, if people find themselves in an active shooter situation, their best option would be to try to restrain or even kill the shooter. Your options are run, hide, or fight, Lanier said. If you're in a position to try to take the gunman down, to take the gunman out, it's the best option for saving lives before the police get there. Yay! Somebody finally has some common sense. Peeing your pants doesn't help. Look at those people in Paris. There was a fishbowl of sitting ducks. What were they going to do? There was no place to run. They were in a big, large concert hall. Where were they going to run?
Well, and also the news didn't even go into detail that not only were they shot, but they were, disemboweled and chopped up.
Yeah, I heard that. I just heard that, as a matter of fact, a little while ago, that they were, some of them were dismembered. So they had enough time to shoot up that many people, to
and disembowel,
literally cut people up.
Meanwhile, the gunless police had to scramble and take an extra 20 or 30 minutes just to get clearance to check out a gun so they could go and stop it from being 200 people.
They had a long time to pull this dastardly deed. Yeah, and Scott's right. The cops in Paris didn't have any guns. They had to go to their armory and check out the guns and then go back. I don't know if you guys were watching it live. We were. But there were people screaming, help us, help us. And there were gunshots. And the police were outside waiting for the armory van to come. They could not go in and save those people.
I've been looking for YouTube videos of, uploads of the from the patrons of that concert, from taking footage from their cell phones, because you got a concert hall, 30 to 50,000 people or something. You're going to have at least 40%, and that's really conservative. They're going to have cell phones with cameras and video cameras, except there isn't any. How come?
The only ones I saw were taken from the balcony. Some woman had uploaded some that night. I don't know if they took them down or not, but she was live stream from the balcony.
There's a lot of fishy things about that, and I tell you, just because someone says false flag, it doesn't mean people didn't die. I mean, this is the government is allowing this to happen, and what happened? I was waiting for after the problem reaction happened, I wanted to see what their solution was going to be. Well, now they have military on the streets. They're shutting down websites whenever they want. They're searching houses whenever they want. It's martial law. I mean, I bet you Obama's sitting there just thinking, oh, boy, this is just exactly what we're going to do here, which is why he's bringing in all these refugees, if you want to call them that.
Yeah, we have a couple of callers.
Is what it is.
We have a couple of callers on the line, but none of them have their hand raised. If one of you callers want to talk to us,
we got a guest about.
Yeah, we have a guest. We have a guest coming too, but okay, yeah, somebody raised their hand, so let's see who this is. I think this number is familiar. Area code 424. You're live.
It's Tori. How you doing?
Hey, it's our guest. I didn't recognize the area code. I was looking for a different area code. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our guest, Tori Nissen. Hey, Tori, how are you?
Good to hear your voice. Yeah, this is my office phone, not my cell phone. So I didn't think about that.
Yeah, I was looking for a different area code.
Right. It's LA.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is our very special guest. You know her as Snoop Chick. We call her Tori Nissen. She's an incredible author, blogger. She was writing for the National Examiner until they decided conservatism wasn't their bag anymore. So please tell everybody hi and what you're doing here. It's great to have you on.
Everything's good. Yeah, in fact, I look at the Examiner articles that they highlight now. Some are Republican, some are conservative, and you know what? It's just like reading the media. There's no sensationalism you won't find anything there that you probably don't find in everyday media. It's really, really too bad. So, also today I went to a gun shop and it was packed.
Yeah?
Completely packed, yeah. It was very crowded.
Tell us about that, because I'm hoping that everybody's buying a gun.
Well, yeah, and they're expensive. I mean, $600-700 a pop.
Mm-hmm.
So it was pretty crowded. People of all ages are in there, men and women. I mean, it was packed. There were probably, it wasn't a big place, but probably I'd say 25 people scouting around. This was 2
Wow.
o'clock in the afternoon. Yeah. So they're busy, and people next to me were saying, "Yeah, if somebody comes into my house, I'm just gonna, shoot them. They're not gonna, harm me." And one of the clerks behind the desk said, "Oh no, in California here, you can't do that. We're not in Texas. Here in California, you have to prove that they were out to harm you. So even if there's a guy that comes in with a gun or a knife and he's standing in your living room and you shoot him, you still have to prove that he was there to harm you."
Wow.
It's really crazy, yeah.
Up in Massachusetts, you have to prove that you couldn't get away.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. If there was an exit and you didn't take it, then you could be held liable for shooting somebody who's in your house with a handgun or a long gun or any other weapon.
Which is why they have those stand your ground laws.
Down here in Florida, we have stand your ground.
Right.
Somebody comes in your house with a gun, you can blast them.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's how it should be. What the hell is he doing in your house?
That's right.
Duh. Yeah. So it's been an interesting week. I heard you talking a little bit about Belgium. Yeah, and with a handful of people, they shut the whole country down.
Yeah.
I know somebody in Brussels, a cousin. We think he's a cousin. Said that they're overrun with Muslims, and they travel in groups, and it's really difficult to contain them. It's a difficult situation, was what he said.
Tori, that's exactly what my friend up in D.C. told me. Was they had been there for 4 years, and they used to see a Muslim here and there. Now they're in groups of 60 and 70. The women are all in burqas, the men are wearing kurtas,
right.
And they're just walking down the street. He said that the D.C. is saturated with them. So,
I'm sorry, you said D.C.?
D.C., yes. Washington,
Our
D.C.
D.C.?
Yes, Washington,
oh my God.
D.C. Yep, and he's been working there in D.C., in the city, for 4 years. And he works in tall buildings and does contract work. So he sees who's going by. He sees everything. And he says that the place is just saturated with them. He's never seen that many Muslims before. We really are. They might tell you that there's only 10,000, but if you're seeing groups of 60 and 70 here, and groups of 60 and 70 in California, and in Michigan, and Colorado, and everywhere else, there's more than 10,000. It's way more than 10,000, and we're being slammed.
Well, I have we already have some here in California, and I have a paper by the UN, Syrian Regional Refugee Response. It's a regional overview, which they have since scrubbed from the Internet. If you want, I can send this to you. But they indicate total persons of concern to be 4,287,000. Now, I don't know what they mean by persons of concern, and like I said, they have scrubbed this from the Internet.
That means people that are on terror watch list or connected to terrorists. That's what it means.
4 million?
People of concern.
Wow.
Yeah, or
so
people that come from nations that hate our guts and vow to kill everybody in America.
Right.
They know this. It's a complete invasion and take over this country to fundamentally transform it into a Muslim nation.
Right.
I mean, listen to what he has said, his UN speeches, his regular speeches. It's just
twice
obvious.
In the last week, he was giving speeches, and in the middle of his speech, he was talking about Muslims. He said, we as Muslims have to combat this. We as Muslims, we meaning him.
Right.
He put himself in that mix. Nobody accused him of it. He did it.
Right. I don't know what the deal is. You're saying there's tons of them in D.C. I mean, isn't that where our legislators are? I mean, so they're not saying anything, and I'm really pissed that they're not saying anything. I'm pissed that when somebody mentioned to Trump that Obama was a Muslim, Marco Rubio was disappointed that Trump didn't ask him to apologize. So I just took Rubio and moved him over to the Rhino Trader side.
Apologize.
Yeah,
I would have said, good call. You'd have to be
exactly.
You'd have to be an idiot like Bill O'Reilly not to know that after.
Right.
What about his ring? I mean, his parents, his upbringing.
Yeah, there is no God but Allah.
Everything.
Right. Yeah, everything. Absolutely. So it worries me. And this past week, I gave a talk to one of the Republican clubs here about the refugee resettlement and our new Americans. If you want me to go over this, I will.
Please, yes.
I don't know how many. I always feel like we're talking to ourselves because conservatives normally know about the new Americans and the country within a country. If you already know that, I won't go over this.
No, please do, because not all our listeners, and we have a lot of listeners, but not everybody knows what that is.
Okay. So basically, I was talking about the refugee resettlement, and there's several ways that they're bringing immigrants legally and illegally into the country. One is the open borders. That's the obvious one. And in October, there was a big surge coming into the country. Then there's the H-1B visa, which is a non-immigrant visa. Originally, it was designed to allow employers to recruit foreign professionals in occupations where they didn't have qualified people.
Right.
But now they're doing it all over, and it came out when Disney did it. In fact, it wasn't the media that told on Disney. It was something like PC Magazine or Computer World because it involved high-tech people. And Disney had laid off hundreds of high-tech people and recruited people from overseas at a cheaper rate. A friend of mine the other day told me she used to be in IT, and she said all the companies are doing this. They're not even hiring Americans. They're going first for the foreigners, and this gives them up to 6 years to be here. So that nobody's talking about that. Then there's the EB-5 visa. That basically means that foreign nationals can invest money, $500,000 or $1 million, in it's supposed to be high unemployment areas to qualify for an EB-5 visa. So they kick in $1 million to build a multi-use building in your town. They get a visa, so it's like buying a visa. But even that's crooked. There's a Marriott hotel that's going up by the beach here, and in an affluent area, and the way that they are under this EB-5 visa is that they took the population from Inglewood, which is not a good area. So they, everything is crooked. They did everything they could to get the Marriott hotel at the beach. Even played with the numbers. What?
Down in Miami Beach, there was a Saudi billionaire who bought a huge mansion. And because he was hiring domestic help, they gave him one of those EB-5 visas.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So he didn't even have like a multi-use building. It was just a personal mansion. But where he hired a maid and a gardener and a driver, then he qualified. And, of course, he made big donations to politicians, too. But there was a big thing down here in Miami Beach over it.
Right. Well, there should be, because nobody's following up on any of this. We're really screwed. So then in November, the White House memorandum came out. Obama was in Vegas, and he was supposed to sign something so that the 11 million illegals that are here, that's probably more like 40 million, could become citizens. But instead of that, he signed Creating Welcoming Committees and Fully Integrating Immigrants and Refugees memorandum, meaning that he's going to set up so that refugees and immigrants can come in. He set aside 16 agencies and gave them until March or April to get back to him about it. In April, he came out with the White House Task Force on New Americans. The other thing is, this is not a secret. You can go online and you can get the Task Force on New Americans. And so I don't know how many of you heard, is it Susan Payne or Linda Payne? Susan Payne, I think, on Mark Levin show. If everybody knows about this, stop me. But she called Mark Levin, and she works for a North Carolina conservative radio show, and inadvertently received invitations to a webinar put on by the White House about the Task Force on New Americans. And she was really, really shaken by it. It was unbelievable. Basically, and they're freely talking about this. They're freely talking about taking people in from other countries, putting them in America, giving them money, giving them everything they need, education, money, food stamps, a place to live, and she said they used the word seedlings, seedlings to eventually take over the host, which
right.
put her hair on the back of her head stand up.
Parasite.
They're also exactly. So they're also not assimilating. They use the phrase navigating. And they freely talked about this in the webinar, which was that they're bringing these new Americans in, putting them in communities. They're not assimilating. They're going to completely support them, of course, with our tax dollars. And then when the time is ready, they're going to take over. And they will be the new Americans.
Absolutely. You know, and you can see it taking place, Tori.
Yes.
It's everywhere. They are, she's right, too. They're not going to assimilate. That is absolutely forbidden in the Quran. You are not supposed to assimilate. You are not supposed to make friends. You are supposed to take over. This is a caliphate. So they're not here to become part of the American fabric that Obama says they're just like our kids. No, they're not. Which one of our kids was ever seen holding a rocket launcher or cutting off someone's head or threatening the President of the United States?
Well, I hope somebody calls. I mean, I don't know who's going to call them on it, but I mean, how far is it going to go before somebody finally takes these people out?
You know how far? You know when it's going to stop? When the people step up. That's when it's going to stop. And if we don't step up, then don't cry, because lack of response is still a response. Right.
And so they called it a country within a country. The other thing, of course, that's going on is he's releasing all these criminals from jail, and of course that's where they recruit Muslims in the jails, and so many of us believe that has a lot to do with it. He's releasing more and more Gitmo people. He did Friday. I kind of wonder if that was planned. He released them the same day as the attacks in Paris. So everybody was talking about the attacks in Paris and not the Gitmo.
He released them the day before he signed the new NDAA, too.
Putin probably smoked a few of those leaders, so, he had to release a few to give him some more leadership.
Right. Yeah,
and then they told us there were 5 released when there were actually 6.
Oh, wow, really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Well, the 6th one came on the plane into JFK, I guess, from Mexico.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
Yeah, that was creepy. I have a list.
Now that you said that, maybe they were trying to smuggle somebody in particular, and the rest of them were just cover.
Right. There you go.
They just need to smuggle one person in.
Yeah. Well, remember the underwear bomber?
Mm-hmm.
They gave that somebody personally put him on. He was so doped out of his mind, he didn't know what bus stop he was at. Somebody put him on the plane.
Well, the FBI put him on the plane. That came out in congressional testimony. It was on C-SPAN.
Oh wow!
But the FBI put him on the plane on Christmas. Yeah, that's how he got on there.
Yeah, and remember the shooting with Gabby Giffords, and it was actually Judge Roll who got killed, and he was against all this immigration stuff. He knew all about it.
Right. I'm sure they all know all about it. And I have an idiot for a congressman who keeps writing about how great this is. Well, they all have the same line. So they've all been schooled very, very well. A couple of weeks ago, I was on a conference call with the Immigration Department. Incidentally, if you sign up with the Department of Immigration, you'll get their emails and notifications for things going on. So I was on a conference call with them, and it was for libraries. And there were libraries from all over the country. Plainfield, New Jersey, Los Angeles County was on there, Portland, Oregon. And they were talking about they were talking about the grants that all the NGOs get and how they would use the libraries to educate them. And they are. They're using all the libraries to teach the new refugees or the new Muslims how to be a citizen. So, and they're freely talking about it. I mean, people there were talking about, hey, how can I get a grant so that I can bring people in? I mean, it was unbelievable to hear about all these people on the call knowingly destroying our country. Then I went to an orientation with one of the NGOs. I won't say which one, but, they're it's Lutheran NGO. There's Catholic Charities. There's all kinds of them. So I went to an orientation which lasted about 4 hours here in Los Angeles, and they basically laid out how this is going to be done. You get a grant from the State Department. Overseas, a refugee is identified, and which is different from an immigrant. An immigrant is somebody that comes into the country on his own. A refugee is somebody that has to flee one country and go to another one. So they flee Pakistan, they go to Greece. The UN tags them, okay, you're a refugee. They send them over here. The NGOs immediately meet with the refugees. They educate them about getting money, about food stamps, jobs, and a path to citizenship. We're actually giving them money. They can choose to get welfare or they can get money from the NGO. Then they visit them in their homes on a regular basis, and they sign them up for citizenship classes in the libraries. I also applied to be one of the teachers for the citizenship classes in the library. We'll see what happens. Those are volunteer work. Yeah, and anybody can do it. It's all volunteer work.
Denise put out an article, Sponge Talks, and it came actually from Judicial Watch, and it says that the Obama administration had let hundreds of illegals in there to stay, even though the federal authorities knew in advance that an open border group coached them to falsely claim credible fear to get asylum, according to documents obtained by Judicial Watch.
Right. I mean, they have to be. Look at the people coming in. They're not the Christians.
Right.
I mean, and did I miss the war in Syria?
Yeah, really.
Well,
the
other thing is,
we got 50 Christians that were allowed in. I know 27 were just turned away from California, as a matter of fact.
Wow. We've got Syrian refugees up in Sacramento. Oh, that's the other thing about the list. Looked at the list, and I can send this to you if you want, Joanne. You probably already have it. But I looked at the list, and every single state has refugees. There are 190 cities. Every single state has refugees in the capitals. Even Honolulu, even Hawaii and Alaska, who only have one city of refugees, they're both the capital cities.
Right.
So, talking to a friend of mine who is a political strategist, and he said the reason probably is that if they settle in the capitals first, they can schmooze with the legislators, get to know everybody, buy them off even, and then act as good citizens. And when they act as good citizens and the politicians speak for them, then they can spread out and do their evil.
That's true, too. We have politicians saying, if you don't like these refugees, get out of my state or out of my city.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. The guy up in Lewiston, Maine, as a matter of fact, was saying that.
He's just taken, Cuomo's line, which said, if you don't like gun control, get out, So this is what they do now. They turn on their own citizens for foreigners. Unconstitutional.
What's the payoff?
Act of tyranny.
Right. What's the payoff for these people?
There's not a payoff for us.
Is globalism.
To Soros.
It's all globalism. It's erasing all borders. Soros has said it
national
himself.
pride.
Right, and national pride. You can't have any sovereignty or national pride at all, because there is no nations with no borders. Your nation is borders, language, and culture, just like Michael Savage says. If you don't have borders, language, and culture, you have nothing.
Oh, right.
You have world citizens. Like Obama claimed to be when he first got in there. He's not an American. He's a global citizen.
Right. But, Dick Durbin, who was in Greece, which is interesting, last week when I called his office, if all these politicians turn our country over to Muslims, I mean, where do they go? They're not going to get out of it.
Sure they are.
Yeah.
They've just, Nancy Pelosi went in there with, with a net worth of $10 million. Now she's worth $120. Where they go? They go to places like South America. I don't know. They probably got underground compounds.
Right.
Gated communities and on islands we've never heard of.
And
right.
a lot of this money is to reimburse Soros. See, Soros puts out the money and gets the party started. And our government finds ways to get the money back in his pocket. These grants and things that he's getting for all these agencies and all the donations that he's getting. We talked about the green loans and how it went to politicians. Well, that's what they do. They reach in our treasury and they say, okay, we need this much money for this stuff. And Soros is getting his money back plus a bonus. Now, he said that he was responsible for getting this migration in motion. Somebody's paying for those boats.
Oh, yeah.
Soros puts the money out, and Obama will get it back to him, believe it. Just like when they sued the banks, and instead of putting the money back in the Treasury, they gave it to these NGOs and these, SEIU and these all these radical organizations to do good work, philanthropic work. But, we're getting, even the former CIA director says that we're going to get attacked, and that's Woolsey. And then his deputy, the other guy, Morell, he said that we're going to get attacked. So they're telling us to our face we're going to get attacked. They're flooding our country with people who will never have any loyalty to the country. These are transnationals.
Absolutely.
They're not Syrians. Only a portion of them are Syrians. The rest of them are from Pakistan and Yemen and Somalia and wherever. They are never going to be loyal to anything except Islam.
Oh,
it doesn't matter what country they are. And some of them are the same fighters that were fighting in Libya, and we picked them up and we dropped them in Syria, and Obama was spending $500 million to train them. Then they all skedaddled because Putin was kicking their butt, and so was the Iranians, and so was Assad. So I'm sure that those trained fighters are now in the mix of these refugees.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And people are catching on, I think. It seems like over 60% of Americans are against these. I don't know what the other 40% are thinking, but I don't know. Something's got to happen.
What's got to happen
I feel it
is
getting closer.
Americans have to get on the same page. We're not. They're fighting over petty things. They got Black Lives Matter running around and hassling white people in the libraries at school. So everybody's focused on that. And they have, these cop killings and things like that going on. And people aren't even paying attention to that. We got Obama, and not just Obama, because Obama's only the spokesmodel. These things had to be in place and ready to go with the right president.
Yes.
He didn't make any of this up. This was already sitting there waiting for him. All he had to do was pick up the mantle and run with it. The John Podestas of the world and the Brzezinskis and all of them, they already knew all this, the Soros and Buffett and that crowd. They already had this in place. All they needed was the puppet. So now they got him. So he is facilitating this. Now, I don't know why we would allow that, but what they've done is they have controlled. Now they control the education, okay? So now where do your kids go? Big, huge hordes, all the kids. Every one of the kids has to go to school, right? So they got them. And every one of the kids watches TV or is on the web or plays the video games or goes to the movies. And they're all geared toward young people. They keep hammering this message. Now the rest of us, we're all scattered all over the place. Okay, yeah, we're on Facebook or we're on a radio here and there. But we don't have the access to these large groups of people. But they do. And that's what's going on. They're in our education system. We don't have, our kids are not our own. When you have instructors telling kids to go home and talk to their parents and get them to understand about climate change, that's indoctrination. The teacher is the boss. The student is smarter than the parent, and the parent's an idiot for not listening to the kid.
Right.
So your children are not your own anymore.
Yeah, there are a lot of people out here working on Common Core because it's just, when you start looking into it, it's just horrific. They ask the kids, 300 different questions about their family. I mean, they're mining all this data, and then what they're teaching the kids is just terrific. They're dumbing them all down. And they're what they're doing is they're taking logic and reason away from them. If you look at how they're figuring out math problems, none of it is logic. I don't know what the hell they're doing, but they're definitely taking away logic.
Easiest people to control are unarmed morons, right?
Right.
So they've got to make everybody a moron and make sure they're disarmed. And they're just like fish in a barrel.
Right.
And then they don't. That's a good reason why they don't want you to homeschool either, because you might tell these kids about the Constitution.
Well,
I saw Watters World.
That's the whole reason why, when I was a kid, my dad worked. My mother stayed home, and I had 4 brothers and sisters. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
5 kids with 1 income, and he wasn't a CEO of some big company. Okay, that was the norm. And then they made it so 2 people had to work for the same same life or half as good. And now look at it. 2 people are working, can barely afford 1 daycare center for their kid while they're working 60 hours a week apiece just for that one place. And you know, they got a 24-hour babysitter to school for 12 years to brainwash them.
Right.
And if both parents are working, when do they have time to bond with the child?
Yeah.
So the child's actually raising itself.
They don't want you teaching your kid things about, like freedom and the Constitution and what freedom of speech means and stuff like that, you see. And pretty soon, guess what? Little Johnny's coming home with an ISIS poster because his teacher wanted him to make ISIS poster day. I mean, I remember this is why I don't have any children, because
I remember my own mother.
That would be it. I would come freaking unglued on this school and the school system.
Right.
My mother would recite to us the Paul Revere ride. Listen, my child, and you shall hear of the midnight ride of Paul Revere. I remember her reciting that to us. She made us know the Constitution. She made us know the Bill of Rights. We knew our history. I saw Watters World last night. Do you know those students couldn't even pick out the United States?
Oh, I didn't see that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice geography, huh?
Yeah.
I did see the one. Yeah, I saw the one a couple of nights ago where Watters was asking questions. I think it was in New York, and he said, "Yeah, Bernie Sanders is up in Vermont," and the kid said, "What's that?" He didn't. Yeah. He had never heard of Vermont.
Right.
You're in New York. I don't know.
Did you know every state and every state capital and what their gross product was and population and topography? Absolutely.
Right.
Not anymore. And
just unbelievable.
Linda Esterbite, is that her name? I can't ever get her name right. She has done she has got a great book out called The Dumbing Down of America. And boy, that'll open your eyes, because she was inside there when they switched the entire school system from a capitalist-based, personal responsibility and work hard and this and that and that, when they switched it over to the communist system of, collectivism and, there is no one's, the kids don't belong to their families, they belong to the whole state,
Right.
That's when they started it. It was like in 82 or so.
I saw the anti-capitalist kids in the schools. We've been watching the Black Lives Matter and all that. And they're anti-capitalism. They're standing there in Arapistoli sweatshirts and Birkenstocks and holding on to iPads and wearing the goose down jackets, and every bit of it was capitalism. They showed up in a car. Bernie Sanders rides around in an airplane made by Boeing. That's all capitalism.
Well, yeah, and the socialists, they use the same trick every time. They go into a country, or they take over a country. They're socialists by telling all the poor people, we're gonna lift you up so you can be equal. We're all gonna be equal. We're gonna lift you up, all of you poor people. And so the poor people are thinking, oh yay, I want to have as much as this guy. But what they end up doing is taking the upper and middle class and bringing them down to the poor people.
Right.
And they do it every time.
Yeah, and people don't realize that.
I mean, Marxism, it's all about getting rid of the middle class. You can't have a middle class with totalitarianism type things. You got to have a ruling class, and then everybody else is a peasant.
My younger son was wearing a T-shirt, "Feel the Burn." So,
God.
Yeah, I know. So,
in your wallet. Feel the burn in your wallet.
Well, I said that to him. I said, he wants 90% taxes from you. So I'm sure Eric's sort of wondering about that. But it's total. He's 25, so he's been totally
steeped
indoctrinated. I mean, if you've talked to him, it's like listening to Occupy Democrats.
Right.
Wow. He's gotten it all down.
Got their education from talking points and Jon Stewart.
And then they try to tell you, things like you know absolutely nothing. Well, you don't know anything about that, because you're the older generation. What do you mean I don't know anything about that? Where do you think it came from?
Right.